Hi, this is Shivani Mangal, and this is my submission for COMPI 258 Deep Learning Personal Project. The topic of my project is neural style transfer. I'm submitting this project to Professor Shiyu Chang. On internet, we see a lot of artworks created by the neural networks. That method that is used to create these artworks is called the neural style transfer. The output of the neural style transfer is a combination of two images with content of one and the style of another. An example is shown here on the right. Recent proliferation of phone applications that use this technique include Prisma. The is introduced in a paper called A Neural Algorithm of Artistic Style. It was written by Leon A. Gattis, Alexander S. Ecker, and Matthias Bech. Let's discuss a little about this paper. The paper first describes loopholes of previous style transfer algorithms. The neural networks think in terms of neural activation, which may not be proportional to color intensity in source image style. This leads to an inconsistent behavior. Thus, the authors propose that the output image should rely on statistical similarity with source images. They also suggest texture synthesis for the same. Some of the excerpts from the paper are that convolutional neural network consists of layers of small computational units that process visual information hierarchically in a feed-forward manner. Each layer of units act as image filter, each of which extract a certain feature from the input image. Da Vinci laid hidden messages in his work. Dali was known to rub off the fine line between reality and dreams. The neural style transfer algorithm helps us to convert our own images into artworks by Da Vinci and Dali. Important questions to address here are: who are our customers? Our customers are artists, connoisseurs of art, and people who like to share their photos on photo sharing applications like Instagram. As per a survey, 68% adults edit their photos before posting them online. Thus, the market is pretty huge for neural style transfer algorithm. As per the paper, it takes 2 hours to train the model on CPU. Also, the authors found that the best results were found when training with 16 content images. It was mentioned that neural style transfer is a supervised learning process, and once implemented, it can be run on Android devices and websites alike. Let's discuss the approach. The authors have proposed to use VGG19, which is a pre-trained image classification network. They use Keras on TensorFlow to implement this. Intermediate outputs within our pre-trained image classification network allow us to define style and content representations. The convolutional neural networks are able to capture the invariances and defining features within the classes. VGG19 is a relatively simple model, but does the feature maps actually work better for style transfer compared to those of ResNet and Inception? Here, to extract the content of the image, we use the second CNN layer from the block. It's observed that to obtain the content, we use higher layers. Let's talk about the custom loss function. The custom loss function is used to identify the best output. Our main object is to minimize the loss. Thus, the custom loss function is an amalgamation of two different losses: the content loss, which makes sure that the net amount of content is preserved, and the style loss, which takes care of the amount of style getting transferred to target image. Intermediate layers are necessary to define the representation of the content and the style from our images. We try to match the corresponding style and content target representation at these intermediate layers. Along the way, as the network gets deeper, it cares more about the textures. Thus, the layer for extracting style are conv11, conv21, conv31, conv41, and conv51. These all have varied style constants for each layer. To To obtain the style from the image, we perform dot products between same layers to capture the texture instead of the global image. Thus, we perform correlation. The correlation between feature maps is known as the gram matrix. If we want more of the first layer, we multiply it by a higher constant compared to the other layers. For style, we use lower layers. We can always experiment with these layers. But for our implementation, we've gone with the ones that were suggested in the paper. Here's an example on the right where we combine content and style of two different images to produce something new. Let's take a look at gram matrix, how the gram matrix is formed. Let's take an example of a convolved image of dimension 8 by 8 by 16, where 16 is the number of feature maps. Gram matrix is used to find similarity between these 16 feature maps. To do that, we first flatten the first two dimensions of the image to get a 1D vector with 64 entries. We repeat this across all the feature maps. The final matrix thus is a 16 by 64 one. Matrix is then transposed and multiplied by itself. And finally, we achieve a 16 by 16 gram matrix. The values in the gram matrix denote similarities between the feature maps. Let's take a look at the implementation of this algorithm. It was split in different parts. First, being pre-processing the data. BGG is trained on image with each channel normalized by mean. Next, we pull out the intermediate layers, that is for content and for style. Then we build model using BGG19, which is pre-trained model on ImageNet dataset. We build the model to extract these layers. Next, we define content loss, style loss, and functions to find the gram matrix. Finally, we run gradient descent and use Adam optimizer to minimize the loss. The last step is to visualize the output. Let's see some of the outputs from our algorithm. As you can see, these images on the right are combination of content and style of the previous two images. For the first image, I trained it for a 500 iterations, and I kept on changing the weights, and the ones that I found the best, I've shown them here. Some more examples. The picture on the left was taken in a coffee shop. The one in the middle are from an Egyptian scripture and a Roman Empire. This gives us a completely new image on the right. To conclude, I'd like to say that VGG19 is a good starting point for neural style transfer. The representation of content and style in an image are separable using convolutional neural networks. Also, neural networks are not an artistic competition, but they help us to update our own creativity. Here are some of the references. Thank you.